Hey, it's Louis Max, Grind&Pivot. Hope you enjoyed part one with Brett Eidman. Find out in part two who those two guys were and how Chicago pans out. Peace.
Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
The Taj Mahal,
Of course.
and
Goosebumps.
yeah. I was like, and I've seen pictures of it, and so I go inside to find out like what the deal is. And there's two guys standing around, and I said to him, I said, excuse me, I'm a New York comedian actor, and I'd love to know how to get into the Second City. I want to come here. I want to do this whole thing. And they said that well, you got a resume. And you have to get a letter of recommendation. You got to do this and that. They told me all the things I needed to do to get in, and then you have to audition. So those two guys were Chris Farley and Tim Meadows.
Wow.
Which
that
I didn't know who they were. It was just kind of
that's right. It's still early on. That's right.
Guy and a black guy, and
Great,
great
story.
And so I leave, and I watched the show that night, and I was like, oh, they're the two guys I spoke to earlier, And Chris Farley just being incredible, and Tim Meadows being great too. I watched the show, I was just blown away, and I said, I gotta get in here. So I sent in my stuff. I called up the Second City to see who do I send it to and everything else. I sent in my stuff, and then they invited me to audition.
So they did. That's interesting. So they did actually respond.
Yes.
And did you have to send like a reel or something, like a tape or something? Your salesman, right? You just sell it yourself?
Yeah. And I also I had to get a letter of recommendation. I had to have had at least a year's worth of improv under my belt. And there was a whole bunch of different things that they wanted that I had, and I got a professional actor teacher guy, a teacher who wrote me a letter, and because I studied with him, and I went out and I auditioned, and went back, to audition.
Still on your dime, right?
Oh yeah, sure.
Of course, all right. Well, yeah. Well, I think about it, it's like, of course.
It's always on my dime.
Yeah, I was going to say.
It still is on my dime.
Everything is still on your
exactly.
dime.
It's on my dime. It should be my name, on my dime.
I like it.
So they said that the audition is going to be completely improvised. So I was like, great. Now I don't have to prepare. I don't have to do anything. And I said, well, is there anything I have to do to prepare? They said, well, if we were you, we would suggest reading Viola Spolling's improv games. So it's basically a book full of improv games. So I read it, and go out, and they said at the audition that, all right, all you guys come in. We're going to do 3 at a time. So I'm waiting for to get called up, and they said, oh, you, and I'll get called up on stage, and they said, okay, we're going to give you a scenario, and then you guys just do a scene.
Wow.
And they said, okay. And they said, all right, you're 3 guys, and it's right before Christmas, and you're setting up a Christmas tree. So I said, okay. So the first thing I say to the other guys is, say, hey, look, I'm going to need some help here because I'm a Jew.
Of course.
All of a sudden, I got big laughs, and gave my partners something to work with.
Absolutely.
Like, oh, here, this is how you put the star on the tree. Here's this,
Right, you fed
and
him.
The Star of David? No, that's not Star of David. That's just, it's like,
all right.
And the scene went really well.
Mm-hmm.
I left there going like, I think I did really well. I think I did good, unless I'm delusional. And then they called and said, all right, you're in. So I started studying out there, and I was there for a year and 3 months.
Holy craps. So with the girlfriend, you guys moved out there?
Well, no. I
what happened there?
The girlfriend was okay for a while.
Right. Okay.
But I was flying in and out of Chicago every week.
Got you.
Right. That's the truth. I know, because I was doing the DJ job.
By the way, I want to just say, shout out Mazel Tov to the DJ, to the bar and bat mitzvah girls. Bar and bat mitzvah. Shout out because that just gave you the bread to go. I mean,
right.
Of
exactly.
course. That
was the DJ money paid for my Second City.
Yeah, for sure. Okay,
and I was taking flights in and out every week.
Holy crap.
And making my way up the ladder at the Second City. And you have to audition to get to the higher levels.
Of course.
Then I got to the end of it, and they said, why don't you audition for the touring company? And I said, well, I got too much going on at home, the DJ business and everything, my family, so I didn't.
You weren't willing. So right there, let's look back at that for a second.
Big mistake.
Okay. Pivotal moment, Brett Eidman, looking back, Why? I'm sure you've thought of this.
Oh, big time.
Okay, you had the shot right there.
Right.
Don't know whether or not it was going to pan out, but you were going to be on the team. Might have been on the Mets. Might have been on the Yankees. Why do you think, if you care to discuss it, because I'm sure there are people out there, right? Yeah, because there are people out there now, I'm sure, that same ball game as you now were, and same ball game now as a young person.
Right.
Hit it.
Well, I missed my family even when I go out there for a couple of days. I had like big time homesickness. That's one thing.
Really?
And then plus I did have my business here, and I was thinking if I make it out to the touring company, I'm not going to be able to do the gigs, and I would drive them crazy, and I'm just not available. Um, I what I should have done, and I there's nobody in my family that's in show business, and I didn't have any close friends that would say, hey, look, if you want to be on Saturday Night Live, or if you want to, make it, you gotta stay there.
I said the sacrifice originally. So
yeah, make your mark. Nobody said that to me. And then they called me a couple more times to audition, and I said I can't. And career wise, I should have just folded everything up. But I had a lot of contracts, for bar mitzvahs and weddings and stuff, and I didn't want to
money, financial stability,
financial
securement.
I didn't want to screw these people.
You want to screw either? Okay.
I made a commitment, so I'm a man of my word. So but if I was Mr. Show Business, I would have said screw those people at the bar mitzvahs and stuff, and go to Chicago. And whose career is it? It's your career. Let those people go. They'll find somebody else and be done with it. I just didn't have that in me to do that. Hindsight, bad move on my part. For one reason or whatever that real reason is that I didn't do it, that was the moment where I could have used some advice on how to navigate that.
Okay, so let's not call it a bad move. Or you think it's a bad? You think it was a bad? I mean, you made a move.
At the time, I just made a move.
You made a call. You made the call. There's something underneath there the family thing. I don't know. Maybe it was something that you just weren't willing to. The fear of something was there. Right. We know that, and I'm only talking about it now because you're older. You're not mature. We know that already, right? You're older. You kind of. I'm sure you think about it, and you don't know how it was going to be anyway.
Yeah.
Give enough rope to hang yourself.
Yeah. Well, I mean. Part of it is that I've always had a fear, and I've never even talked about this, but I've always had a fear that something was going to happen to my dad.
Okay.
And of course, someday it will.
Yeah, but he's young. But you're young. You're younger, and he's not that old. Although everybody seems to be older. But go ahead.
Right. When you're young, everybody's old. Yeah. But I had a fear that I needed to be around in case he needed something, even though that he would be the last person to say, hey, I want you around. Like, he would be like, do your thing, do whatever makes you happy. And I felt uncomfortable leaving for him for anything.
Brothers or sisters? We didn't ask that. Brothers or sisters?
Yeah, I have a brother who's older and a sister that's younger. That's a whole other story.
Okay, so that's a whole other story.
We'll
okay, so
you're
in the middle,
and
it's your. This is interesting. Okay, go ahead. Keep going.
Now, and then later on, much later on, not even like just a few years back, I go out with to dinner with a guy that I was in the second city with, and he said to me like, "Why didn't you do the touring company?" And I said, "Well, I went into the whole thing." And he says, "Well," he goes, "You would have really had a blast." And he says, "I ended up doing." He goes, I ended up doing it. And he says, and I was in the group with Tina Fey and Amy Poehler. I said, oh, okay. Who are they?
Right. Of course. Who?
But I, so career wise, that just wasn't the right move. And in hindsight I would advise somebody, stay in one place long enough to make yourself known. I just wanted, like, I trained out there, I did everything, and I figured now I have the Second City credit, I can use that to move on.
Okay, that's fair.
So that's
fair.
what I thought, but there's more to a credit. There's more than just putting a credit on a resume. You got to make your mark.
You got to do.
Yeah, and at the time,
Chris
Farley was in all the newspapers in Chicago saying this is the next Belushi and this and that, and he was right. I mean, I was there when he got discovered by Lorne Michaels, and I tried to get Lorne Michaels' attention, and I actually did get his attention, and I asked him if he can audition me, and he said yes. He says, call us on Tuesday, and we'll get you an audition. And then I called on Tuesday, and I found out that Lorne's not auditioning people. He grabbed Chris Farley, he grabbed Chris Rock, and then he's thinking about Tim Meadows, but he's not auditioning anybody anymore. Why did he tell me he was auditioning when he wasn't? Because he didn't want to have a confrontation with me in Chicago.
Right, of course.
That's all.
Yeah.
So who cares if I screwed with Brett's head?
Yeah, welcome to the world. Oh, yeah. Brett who?
Who gives a shit?
Yeah, they're yeah. And you know what? You unfortunately, at that level, you can't really give a shit like that. I'm not saying it's right, but you see it every day. You do see it every day. Listen, so you had that opportunity with SNL, right? You did eventually get one. Was that lit? How many? Well, was that years later? How did that morph into that?
Actually, I did a few SNLs before I even got into the Second City, which is like ass backwards. And how I got that is I kept sending in resume, picture, even some material. Sometimes I kept doing it, and people tell me like, "What the hell are you doing? Like, why are you doing that?" I said, because I think maybe one day they'll look at it and they'll tell me to come in.
I love it.
And one day they did.
I love the ball. Dude, the balls are amazing. The gusto is absolutely amazing. And I'll say this later, but I by the way, you're a mensch for the dad. That you know. Or if you don't know, if no one ever said to you, I think there's probably a couple of people that have. That's number one. Your dad gave you this gift of...
Well, he never gave up.
Something. He gave you this gift, whether giving up or trying or throwing the ball in. He instilled that you got that somewhere from him. And then I think at the same time, you got you were the guy who wanted to protect him as well. And, as we said, we're talking about it now, you're an older guy, and we'll get to a couple other ideas, but, I think it's amazing. I think it's a good thing. I gotta tell you. No matter what you think, I'm sure deep down inside it's a good thing. But these things happen. So you went SNL ass backwards. You got on there. I think I saw I did see a clip or something. I think in the doc, right? It is.
Yeah.
And we have to mention In the Name of Comedy. We're going to mention it later. It's available. It's a documentary that is available on all platforms, I believe. But Brett will definitely talk about it later. So SNL, you get a shot. Talk.
Well, the shot that I was getting on SNL, like we're just basically, almost like background kind of stuff. And the first time that they called me, I didn't think it was real. I thought somebody was playing a joke on me, right. But then they called back and said, this is real. I go down to SNL and I'm doing, we're rehearsing. I guess it was Saturday afternoon, going over the sketch I'm going to be in. And meanwhile, I was blown away by just walking in there.
Sure, sure.
I just could not believe I was actually driving to
work. Were you
work.
terrified? What was the feeling? Give us the feeling. What emotionally?
I was terrified for so many different reasons. I was like, now, do I become a drug addict now? Right. And I'm also, as I'm going in there, I'm walking by all these celebrities, like my heroes. Oh, there's Al Franken. There's Dennis Miller. There's Phil Hartman, there's Kevin Nealon, there's Mike Myers. They like all these people, like John Lovitz. I'm like overwhelmed because these are like my heroes.
But you can run, but deep down inside, you felt you could run with them.
Well,
how did you feel? How did it ever even come into question?
Back then, I just felt like I'm just happy to be here.
I'm young. I'm part of it.
And you know what? I think even back then. Like I had even a little bit more confidence than I may even have now.
Definitely.
I was like, how
fearless.
Here I am
Fearless.
Yeah. I mean, like, so I go in and they said, oh, this is a scene and you're going to jump on top of Phil Hartman's back and you're going to club him in the head. And Tony Danza and Kevin Nealon are playing cops and they're not going to do anything, even though you're beating up the other cop. And you're going to walk in, you're going to walk out. And then, so I did it, and I'm jumping on Phil Hartman's back, and I'm hitting him in the head with a club. And then he walks out of the scene, and I'm still there, and he lets me down. And then he looks at me and he goes, "I'm really sorry." He says, "I'm going to have to ask casting to get somebody else." He says, I thought you were going to be really thin, and I thought you were going to be a smaller person." He says, "I got a bad back." He says, "You're too heavy."
What?
So my heart just dropped, because I thought this was my first chance, and now I'm not getting it. And so at the same time, when Phil Hartman said that to me, Kevin Nealon was walking over, and Kevin Nealon said to me, "Hey, I'm sorry it didn't work out," but he says, "We'll make it up to you." So I'm like, wow, that was really nice. And I'm thinking, well, was that more show business bullshit, or is
Yeah,
this
how
for real?
what clout does he have to make it up to you?
Right. And same with Phil Hartman. He's like, "I'm really sorry." And because they saw in my face that I was like, oh man, I was trying to get my 15 minutes in,
For sure.
And so they said, do you want to go to the go to the show tonight? And I said, yeah, sure. So they gave me 2 tickets to the show. I called my girlfriend up to meet me down there. I left my stuff behind stage so I would have a reason to go back there after the show was over. And I said, "Oh, maybe this is the end of my SNL thing." And like, I don't know, it was a week or 2 weeks later, they called me, and I went back. So I was like, wow, those guys were legit. I mean, those guys actually meant what they said. Like Kevin Nealon and Phil Hartman, we'll make it up to you. We'll have you back. So they did.
Wow.
And they were very cool.
Interesting.
Yeah, and one of the most thrilling things that it's ever happened to me was that I went to a comedy show. Actually, Kevin Nealon's his show, and it was in Norwalk, Connecticut. And I went with my girlfriend. I'm sitting in the middle of the audience, watching his show, and I'm sitting there going, I think Kevin's looking at me, and but I'm thinking like, well, maybe he's not. Maybe he's just great at making eye contact with people. He's a great performer, and but I'm still thinking, I think he's looking at me. So in the middle of his show, he points at me and he says, "I know you." And I'm looking around like, who's he? He's talking to me? And he says, "Yeah, I know you. You were in SNL, weren't you?"
Wow.
And I said, "Yeah." He says, "Yeah, I remember you. Why don't you stand up and take a bow?" And he says, "Yeah, this guy was on SNL, And then at the end of the show, I went over to talk to him, and I said, I can't believe you even remember." He says, "Oh yeah, I remember." He says, "I remember you did the thing with Tony Danza. I remember when you came down and you played the cop. I remember this. He remembered everything."
Solid.
It's incredible.
That is incredible.
And so I said, "Yeah, Kevin, I'm trying to do what you have done." And I said, I'm frustrated because I'm trying to get there. And so he told me that he was getting ready to quit comedy altogether when he got discovered, like when he got the call to do SNL. He was working as a bartender or a bouncer somewhere at a comedy club, and he just kind of like gave up on it already. And I said, well, maybe I should give up. Maybe something will happen to me.
Right, exactly.
He said, no, don't do that. Keep at it. So, and anyway, so I did a whole bunch of Saturday Night Lives, and then the Second City came rolling along. Then I tried to get in with Lorne Michaels, and that didn't happen. And then I just kept doing my thing and doing stand up and doing improv, and while I'm in the Second City, I got the gig doing Bozo the Clown.
Okay, so that's a great sidebar. Tell us a little bit of that. I mean, you want to first say, tell us a little bit about the whole Bozo thing, because a lot of people probably listening do remember Bozo, but for the people that might be listening to this, like my son's kid, my friends, and young folk, give us the rundown on Bozo. I'll let you do it.
Well, when I was a little kid, living in Brooklyn, I used to watch Bozo the Clown. I loved Bozo. I thought he was great. So I'm reading the show business paper and looking, and all of a sudden I see a casting announcement looking for a new New York Bozo, and we're gonna have auditions and all this other stuff. And I'm like, wow.
What year? What years are this?
Late 80s.
It's still 80. Okay.
89,
All
90,
right.
somewhere around there.
Gotcha.
I had I have it somewhere. I have a picture of the whole thing. So I submit to see, because I figured like Bozo is really like a host in makeup. He was like a host of a show. So I'm like, that's right up my alley. I like hosting.
Totally. 100%. So
I said I could do this. And
this is
you. At bar mitzvahs and stuff, I'm playing games with the kids.
You are Bozo at the right.
I am.
Exactly.
I said, this is like I'm going to get this gig. So, I mean, I'm like, how can I not get this gig? I MC shows, and I also play games with kids all the time at bar mitzvahs. Like, I'm super trained for
You're
this.
overqualified.
So I end up going to this audition down in the city. There's a million clowns everywhere.
Fucking
And
literally.
one guy walked in and he had like a real official bozo costume on. I'm going, man, this guy's going to get the gig. And meanwhile, he already had the gig up in Rhode Island, you know, and he starts cursing because they left the door locked on him. And it's funny watching a bozo curse at a door. But so it was a big media event. Every news channel was there. And what's that guy, Maury something, was on the news?
Oh, Maury Povich.
Not Maury Povich.
Maury Alter? Maury Alter.
Yeah, he was there. Yeah.
Oh my God.
So they had cameras and people all over the place.
Channel 2, Maury Alter. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, PR stunt, big time. And so I go up and I do my shtick. They said you have to do the Bozo song, which I had no idea what the Bozo song is. So I did a children's song and do a monologue why you want to be Bozo, and then do like a little clown shtick. So I did, and nervous as can be. And then when I got done, like I was talking to the official Bozo, the other guy that was cursing at the door earlier. He told me, you did great. He said, stick with it. You'll get the job. I'm like, okay. So I stuck with it. I kept, calling and saying, I was at the New York auditions and yada, yada. I was calling California, Larry Harmon Pictures Corp. And Larry Harmon was at the audition, the original
Larry
Bozo.
Harmon was the original Bozo, correct? Was he the original or he was the one that was made?
You want the real answer? No, he's not the original Bozo, but he's the guy who took the clown and he made franchises out of it with Bozo the Clown shows all over the place.
Interesting.
So I was like the 206th Bozo.
Interesting.
Willard Scott was a Bozo, and he left Bozo the Clown and went to McDonald's and say, "Hey, I got a good idea for you guys."
Willard Scott gave the Ronald McDonald.
Yes.
Good call. I didn't know that. Good trivia.
Yeah. So that's and Larry was thrilled.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So what was I saying? So I stuck with it. So then I'm reading the show business trades again, and I see Bozo the Clown's having auditions in LA for a new Bozo show. And I'm like, wait a minute, like again? Like, did they pick anybody from New York? And so I said, God, I better go. And meanwhile, I'm on the plane reading this. So I called up Larry Harmon Pictures Corp and I speak to them. And I said, look, I was at the New York Bozo. I know that I could do this. I would be great at it. Do you think I got a real good shot at, if I come to LA? And I said, I'll take care of everything. And they said, no, wait a minute. We don't want you flying out from New York to. I said, well, if you think I have a really good chance, I'll do it. So they said, that's up to you, but I don't think you really should. So I called my travel agent. She tells me that that's going to cost me $1,300 to go from Chicago to LA, then back to New York. And
Right.
it was a real screwed up flight. And I call up the Harmon people and I said, like, look, it's going to cost me $1,300. And they said, oh, no, don't do that. Don't spend that kind of money. Send us a tape.
Okay.
I send them a tape. They call me back and they said, we want you.
It's amazing.
And a year later, I got to meet Larry Harmon. It took a year till they actually met with me after they said they wanted me.
Wow, that's crazy. So tell us about the gig. What was it? Was it rewarding? Was there money?
Harmon.
What did you do?
No, I was a bozo. I was like, wowie kazowie, pals.
Where were you?
I did the road shows, Kmart stores, Target stores, malls, things like that. And I was, people thought that they
on the
knew me,
road.
Yeah, I was the road bozo.
What was it like? Bozo groupies?
Yes, and I was surprised at that. Like Larry would tell me that, look, once you put this makeup on, you're a big star.
I'm not surprised.
And women are going to throw themselves at you.
No doubt about it.
I'm thinking to myself,
you're crazy.
Are you kidding me?
No.
What kind of I'm thinking I'm calling bullshit on this one.
Right.
So I train with him. I get the voice down. I get the makeup down, the whole deal. And my first gig is in St. Louis. I go to my first Kmart store in the morning, and there's a girl there who says, "Where are you staying? What room you're in?" And all. I'm like, "Holy shit, Larry's right." And I didn't take advantage of the opportunity because I'm a professional.
Of course not.
Another mistake in my career.
Brett, that's a mistake. And good job staying under the radar. But
No, 'cause she asked me,
that's gold. That is gold,
Where are you
man.
staying? I said, well, I'm staying near the Arch. And then she'd say, well, what room number? Well, I don't know. There's a lot of rooms in the hotel. I kept blowing her off. And, later on, I was like, man, that was stupid.
Yeah.
I could have had some fun in St. Louis.
For sure.
Yeah, more fun.
So you did that. How long did you do that for?
3.5 years.
And was that your main thing? Were you, or you were just
was also doing
filling
other
in?
gigs.
You just filling in. You were just filling in.
Yeah, I was I was actually really like a contractor. Like, what do they call it? Subcontractor or whatever.
Independent contractor. Independent
That's
contractor.
That's what I was looking for. Independent contractor, sign an agreement that I would do, follow the bozo rules and don't get laid in a hotel with your bozo outfit on.
Right, exactly. Right.
So I followed all the rules. I played the game. I did that. And I did, I don't know, about 50 some odd gigs with them. And then I asked for a raise and that I didn't want to do Kmart stores anymore. I thought there was going to be a TV show involved here, and TV show. We're working on it. Meanwhile, the bozo shows are being taken off the air everywhere. So I jumped onto a sinking ship, but it was a great experience. I mean, how many people could say they were a bozo, so I have a lot of things in my life that who can say they did this? Who can say they did that? And it's like
tremendous. I mean,
like Zelig.
This one is gold. This one is definitely gold. I love that because
John Hart, our buddy John Hart, when he wants to do another film based on the bozo thing.
Might have a story. He knows a story. He does know a story. I'll give him that.
And I said to him, I said, John, but Larry Harmon's already famous already. I'm the one who's not famous.
I don't know. You could make it. I don't know. There's something there. I don't want to say anything. There is something famous. So basically, all right. So then when you kept on basically DJing for the next 20 years. I mean, what about in the 2000s? You kept on going. It's a real gig.
Yeah, I started to slow down because of not being as desirable as I got older. Because I mean, when I first started in the DJ business, I was 16. So I would do the Sweet 16s, and I'm like, hey, I'm in with everybody, and I was meeting girls.
Aged out. Yeah.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, I'm doing like graduation parties, and now I'm doing a wedding, so I'm older. And then before you know it, you're doing bar mitzvahs, and then you're old enough to be the kid's parent, or even older than their parents.
Right.
And I'm like, I'm playing games with kids.
I can't do this. Yeah.
I just and then people that were also feeding me work, like catering halls and the party planners and all that stuff, they were getting out of the business. And for a time, they were calling up and asking me by name, like, is DJ Brett available? And I'd say yes or no, whatever. And then it got to a point like, we're looking for a DJ. They wouldn't even say my name and how much do you cost? And it was basically like every DJ was the same to them, so they didn't know the difference. And I had to start selling myself like crazy. Meanwhile, for years, I didn't have to sell myself.
Right.
I was popular and I was actually turning down more jobs than I was able to book. But it became a big sell job. And I remember it was one time near the end of doing the DJ business, I met with 3 bar mitzvah families, and the 3 of them didn't hire me after I spent like a ton of time at all 3 of their houses listening to them argue over music.
Right.
I wanted to kill myself.
So it probably came down, and then I think this generation is pennies. Dollars and cents a lot of time. It comes down to it. I mean, in my business too, with the shirts, I'm still doing the embroidery, the silk screen, I'm still doing all that. But a lot of it really comes down to, it's just dollars and cents. And you're willing to work. You're willing to work with them, but you're not willing to work with them. You're not giving them some crazy price to go down hundreds and hundreds. That wasn't you anyway.
No, I kept my price always the same. So nobody would say, oh, he ripped me off. And no,
exactly.
I paid more, you paid less. I mean, there was a gig that I lost because I charged too little. It was for Calvin Klein, and they had a DJ that sucked the year before at their holiday party, and who charged him like $5,000. And then they called me through a guy I know that worked at Calvin Klein, and I said, "Look, I'm going to charge you like $1,100, $1,200." And they're thinking, "Oh my God, if that guy who sucked last year was 5,000, and this guy's 1,200, he must really suck."
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I was 100 times better than that guy, and then I don't suck. I would have done a great job for you, but they got nervous.
Yeah,
they said, he can't be that good if he's only charging $1,200.
Yeah, that's some crazy psychology. That's a whole nother.
And then my friend says, "Why didn't you jack it up?" I said, "Because I don't do that kind of thing. I play fair."
Yeah, play fair,
They
reasonable,
said, well,
reasonable. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for listening. Big shout outs to the crew behind the scenes, John Hart, Ian Lidovich, Russ McMahon, and of course my wife Jill. Don't forget to smash that like button, comment and subscribe, and follow at Grind and Pivot. You already know we appreciate you. Later, son.